You remember summer break lasting forever. 3 months felt like a small lifetime. Now, a year disappears before you've unpacked what happened in January. Same 12 months, same 24 hours in every day, but somehow the clock is lying to you, and it's been lying more with every passing year. That's not nostalgia talking. That's a measurable shift in how your brain processes time, and it happens to almost everyone. Here's what's actually going on inside your head and why it speeds up the older you get. Start with a strange fact. Time isn't something your brain measures directly. There's no clock hidden behind your eyes ticking off seconds. Instead, your brain estimates time using something else entirely: the amount of new information it has to process. More new information, more mental footage gets recorded. And more footage makes a stretch of time feel longer after the fact when you look back on it. This is why a 2-week trip to a new country can feel longer in memory than 6 ordinary months at home. Not because the trip actually took longer, because your brain was working overtime, encoding new streets, new faces, new smells, new decisions every single hour. Novelty stretches perceived time. Routine compresses it. And that's the first clue to what's happening as you age. Neuroscientist David Eagleman, who has spent years studying time perception at Baylor College of Medicine, has shown that your brain doesn't experience time as a steady stream. It builds time out of memory. The more densely packed those memories are with new, distinct experiences, the slower that period feels when you look back. When you were a child, almost everything was new. Your first day of school, learning to ride a bike, a birthday party that felt like a monumental event. Your brain was recording an enormous amount of novel information hour by hour. So a single summer packed with firsts stretched out into what felt like forever. By adulthood, most of your days follow a template. Wake up, commute, work, errands, repeat. Your brain isn't logging much new information because very little of it is actually new. And when there's less to record, there's less material for your memory to stretch across later. The year compresses down to a blur, even though it took the same 365 days to pass. Here's where the math gets uncomfortable. In 1975, engineer and researcher Robert Lemlich proposed something called the proportional theory of time perception. The idea is simple, but the implications are not. Each year of your life is a smaller fraction of your total life lived so far. When you were 5, 1 year was 20% of your entire existence. That's an enormous chunk of your life, so it felt enormous while you lived it. When you're 50, 1 year is only 2% of your life. Same, 365 days, a fraction of the perceived weight. Your brain, whether you realize it or not, seems to measure time relative to how much life you've already lived. That's why your years don't just feel shorter. They feel proportionally shorter, compounding as you age. So picture this moment for what it actually is. You're sitting somewhere ordinary right now, maybe at a desk, maybe on a couch, and if you try to recall last Tuesday, specifically really recall it, there's a good chance it's already gone. Not forgotten exactly, just never encoded with enough novelty to leave a distinct trace. It folded into the general blur of a weekday, indistinguishable from 100 others just like it. Meanwhile, one specific afternoon from a childhood summer, a smell, a conversation, the exact light through a window is still sitting there in vivid detail decades later. Not because it was more important, because it was new, and your brain thought it was worth recording in full. This isn't just a memory quirk. It's rewriting how long your entire life feels in real time while you live it. Here's the counterintuitive part. You'd think the fix is obvious: relax more, slow down, take it easy. But relaxing into routine is exactly what accelerates this effect. The less new information you feed your brain, the faster time appears to move, and the thinner your memory of that period becomes when you look back on it. In 2019, physicist Adrian Bejan at Duke University published research proposing a related mechanical explanation. As you age, the rate at which your brain processes visual and sensory information actually slows down, partly because neural pathways become longer and more resistant as the brain physically grows and ages through childhood and beyond. Fewer distinct mental images get processed per actual second. So each real world second contains less perceived content and time seems to speed by. Put those two explanations together and the picture becomes clear. Time isn't only speeding up because you're getting older. It's speeding up because your days are getting more similar to each other and your brain is processing less new material to mark each one apart from the last. Which means the antidote isn't rest, it's novelty. Deliberately breaking your routine, taking a different route home, learning something unfamiliar, meeting new people traveling somewhere you've never been isn't just enjoyable. It's one of the only tools you actually have to slow your own subjective experience of time back down. Every genuinely new experience forces your brain to record in higher resolution. And that resolution is what gives a stretch of time its felt length later when you try to remember it. Think about what that means for the rest of your life, not just this year. The years that feel like they vanished are usually the years that look the most like each other. Same job, same routine, same weekends, repeating on a loop that your brain barely bothered to record. The years that still feel vivid, even decades on, are almost always the years something changed. A move, a relationship, a risk, a skill you had to learn from nothing. Your brain isn't punishing you for stability. It's just built to skip over anything it's already seen before and is very, very good at recognizing repetition. So the next time a year slips by faster than you expected, you don't need to chalk it up to just getting older. You can ask a more useful question. Not, why did that go by so fast? But, what did I actually give my brain to hold on to? Because you remember summer break lasting forever. 3 months felt like a small lifetime, but it was never really about the calendar. It was about how much of that summer was genuinely new to you hour by hour, day by day. And that math hasn't changed since you were a kid. You've just been feeding your brain the same repeated footage for longer than you realized. Change what you feed it, and the years might just start stretching out again.